So welcome, I am Marcelo Bonini, a professor of medicine at Northwestern University, and as part of the commemoration of Black History Month, it's my great pleasure to introduce my friend, my colleague, Dr. Yvonne Fondufe-Mittendorf, a professor of molecular and cellular biochemistry at the University of Kentucky. And today we are going to chat a little bit about her trajectory, challenges that she faced as a Black female scientist, moving through the ranks and becoming a full professor in a major research institution. So, hey, Yvonne, how are you? Good to have you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let me ask you, tell us a little bit about your trajectory, your education, mentors that you have along the way. What inspired you to become a scientist?
So I'll start with my trajectory. It's kind of really long. I always call myself an academic tourist. And that's because I actually come from Africa in Cameroon. And I moved from there very young and moved to Nigeria because there were no universities catering for the 20% English-speaking population of Cameroon. So I went to Nigeria, did my first degree and my master's degree, and then moved on there to Germany. And in Germany, it's kind of funny because I thought I was going to have to learn German to be able to go through my education. I didn't do that. I did my PhD in English. From there, I did a 2-year postdoc in Max Planck, which is also in Germany. And then from there, I moved to Northwestern. So while I was going through all this years of study, it never occurred to me that I'll ever be a PI. I think the only place where I got someone who actually believed and thought I could be a PI is at Northwestern University, where I met the late Jonathan Widom. He was a great mentor. He passed away very young when I just started my lab at University of Kentucky. But he was very helpful. He told me at that time, Yvonne, you can do it. I believe you can do it. And I think for most of the young people coming up, if someone believes in you, it helps you build your morale and boost your ego, and you have that feeling that you too belong. And the reason for that is because I never met Black scientists, so I didn't know someone like me could be a scientist. But that did not deter me because I thought, coming from Africa, I'm trying to push my way through. I loved research, I loved discovery, and that's what's actually pushed me forward.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So being a Black female, what unique challenges you perceive you encountered, and how did you overcome them?
Being a Black scientist and a female one at that, there are not too many of us. It was actually after all the problems in the US of last year that you actually got to know that there were more of us around. And I think it's kind of sad that we did not initially have groups that would actually help in increasing the representation of Black scientists in education. And what I think is, I've had times where people have told me I got things because I'm Black. Of course, that hurts, right? But for me, I've always wanted to discover, and I think all it takes is that I have to work extremely hard. I have to probably put all those, what people say, to the back burner and try to see how I could, through my hard work, be able to help those young scientists who look at me and say, well, how did she get there? There's no one like us there. And so for me, whatever people say, I just know I have to work 100 times more. I have to publish those papers. I have to fight for those grants like everybody's doing. And I just, at that moment it hurts, but after that, I just think I have to do this and I have to prove wrong. So I think proving them wrong and making sure that others see me as a model. I don't want to be a role model, but I have no choice because there are not too many of us. So I can see a lot of people looking at me and saying, How did she get there? How did she manage to navigate, all the areas that she is in now? And one thing that sticks to me is you're the only one who knows what hurts you. So this is what hurts because I don't see a lot of us. This is what hurts that a lot of us are not coming into the scientific world. And why is that so? So it's left onto me to try to help the younger generation to know that we too belong. So I try to put away the negativity and just know I have to fight for myself and the rest of the people who look like me.
So I think we are so fortunate. We are seeing so many more examples and role models. We have a vice president now that is an amazing role model. We have Amanda Gorman making a beautiful, beautiful speech. And you as a scientist, I really have to ask on that light, if you had a word for young people out there that are Black, that are Hispanic, that are diverse, that are different, what it would be if they wanted to come into the sciences and become researchers. You're definitely a role model for them too.
It's a difficult world, but it's not impossible. And so I put it that, look at me, if I could leave Africa, if I could leave my world that I knew when I was growing up and come here and fight through this to get this, because I believe in myself, someone else believed, my mentors believed that I am capable. You too are capable. And so don't let anything deter you. Yes, it's true, there's no fast money in science, but your contributions in developing, in understanding how drugs would cure some disease is well appreciated, and we need you.
So what would you like to see change in the sciences in academia to be more inclusive for the next generation of sciences? How do you think it could be easier for them?
So I've been fortunate to have an NSF grant, and I think that has helped me. The reason being that the NSF grant actually stipulates that you should show how you can encourage the new generation of scientists. And so what I do is I try right from high school to bring those kids in. They look at me and they say, well, I don't think I can do it. But I tell them, no, if you make those errors, I mean, you're coming into a lab and you're kind of scared, you've never seen a pipette, you have no idea what a gel is, but I bring them in very young. So at least I give them, based on the NSF stipulation, little stipend that helps them during the summer. So it also boosts their ego, because I tell them at the very beginning, you're going to make mistakes, but tell me about those mistakes and I'll help you, guide you through those mistakes. If you make the mistake, you tell me, we can work through it. And so they come in, you see them coming in very naive, they have no idea. And you see them sometimes making those mistakes, but they come and tell you, I made that mistake. But at the end of the 2 months that they stay in my lab, they're amazing. They discuss things that, I mean, initially when they came in, they were just this naive, knew nothing. And right now they're, saying, I think I got this results, but I don't understand what it is. And so we discuss it. So it's just my joy seeing those kids grow from not knowing anything to really discussing scientific views that they have.
So tell us a little bit about research in your lab.
Huh?
Tell us a little bit about research in your lab. What's that you are working on now?
So I work on epigenetics, and it's trying to understand how gene, in the layman terms, how gene regulation actually is regulated. And so most studies would look at gene regulation mainly in how mutations, so how that DNA is actually mutated to cause probably a disease. What I've been fascinated is how that DNA, our DNA in every cell is very, very long, but needs to be packaged into this tiny nucleus. That packaging is needed, but also you can imagine that because that packaging is needed, regulatory factors need to be able to access that DNA. And so epigenetics is the understanding of how those regulatory factors do affect that DNA in the absence of mutation, so in the absence of changing the sequence, how that DNA is packaged, allowing for those regulatory factors to come in. So in processes, sometimes in cancer, sometimes in response to environmental exposures, you have those regulatory factors not being able to access that DNA. And it's not due to the changes in the DNA sequence, it's just the packaging of that DNA, and those regulatory factors cannot access that. When that happens, it's known as epigenetics on top of the genetic information. And that actually also causes changes in gene regulation, which could lead to diseases. And so I'm just so fascinated with the world of it. There's so many things. We're still at the very beginning of trying to understand how these changes are regulated, even in normal growth and in response to the exposures which we have in our daily lives, cigarette smoke, alcohol, the diet, and all of that, they actually would lead to changes in how this DNA is packaged, allowing for the accessibility to the regulatory factors.
Fascinating. Yvonne, you are a very accomplished scientist now. You have moved from country to country, you went through postdoc, you got your lab, you went to the ranks. So now if you could talk to young Yvonne, there in the beginning, the Yvonne there was in Africa, what would you tell her?
Don't be scared. Believe in yourself. Reach out to people. I've found out that in reaching out, sometimes I get results in my lab and I just don't understand it. I'm not scared to reach out to the top scientists with my data and say, this is what I got, and could you help me in explaining? I think that's what science should be all about. We shouldn't hide our data. We should be able to share that data because we're all discovering something new. And just by talking to someone, reaching out to someone, they could help you in the progression of your of your experiments and your research. So a young Yvonne, if anyone knows me too, I love fashion, and it would be to even young scientists and young Yvonne, don't change who you are. Be who you are, because I think if you are true to yourself and you love what you like doing, nothing should be able to stand in your way. Most of the time, people make you change. If you don't like fashion, especially in science, you look abnormal, all right? So most of the time, yes, I go to conferences and I think sometimes I'm overly dressed, but that's just who I am. And I tell people in my lab, be who you are, stick to what you are, just be comfortable in your own skin. And you'd have that other time where you can think about science without the distraction of being someone else that you are not.
On that powerful note, I would like to thank you so much for this and say that I'm very proud to be your colleague and your friend. And thank you for the impact that you do in the sciences, for doing this interview. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Marcello. But one thing I would like to add also, and I think a lot of African kids do go through that. It's amazing for me that I am just one generation away, because my mom, her parents did not believe that women should be educated. And so my mom was never educated. And here I am, her daughter, one generation away, and I teach other people. So I think even when you believe that you're the first in your family to be somebody, you too can.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcello. Thank you.